Yeah, so that's what's left of my belt guard from my air compressor. You can see where it was attached on this guy, which is still just a little bit bent right there. Gotta fix that. And both ends of this were also mounting points with some separator pieces. So I'm gonna be painting the bus in the backyard because I got lots of trees back there which I can take advantage of for tying up some tarps, where over here I've got nothing except, this edge of my house. And you know yeah, so the plan is to move the bus when it's ready for paint around to the back of the house. And so I've got a pool in the backyard, and the pump runs on 220 volts. So I wanted to test and make sure that 220 volt circuit, the wiring was heavy enough, and that the breaker was high enough rating. It's a 20 amp breaker, so it shouldn't be an issue, but mostly because of the wiring is, I think it's a number 12 wire. It goes clear across the whole house to get there. And I wasn't sure that the wire would be heavy enough for the motor to get up to speed and get off the start windings. And if it takes too long to get off a start winding, that high current that it pulls on the start winding could overheat the wiring possibly, or pop the breaker. So I needed to do a test back there to see if that's going to work. And if it didn't work, I was going to have to come up with another plan. So this was just a test run. So my air compressor's on wheels. Those are the original wheels that my toolbox came with. You see right there? I bolted these two toolboxes together for a couple of reasons. One, it's so heavy you can't steal it, and it makes it easier to maneuver. So there's 4 wheels that I removed with the casters and all that from there. This is just supported in the middle by its own self. So I've been holding on to those things for about 10 years. And when I realized I had them, all I had to do was buy new 1/2 inch rod. And I actually, the front of this side of the compressor wasn't designed to have wheels. It was just this foot brace piece. And the rear was designed to have wheels. I had to actually, I don't know why I'm getting into this, but I added those little pieces of angle there. And can you see, there's like a bolt in the original axle hole. And then the axle itself goes through the bottom, and due to the fact that that angle is up against the original frame, the angle can't tip or anything. So those little wheels work out just fine. And I got the air compressor fairly level the way I set it up this way. But it works great for rolling around on concrete. It's, well, pretty great. It's actually very heavy in the rear, and I can easily just pick this thing up. And once I get higher than right about there, it's about 2 inches of elevation in the front, it starts to tip over, which is acceptable for kind of moving around in the garage here, but it gave me a lot of trouble and when we tried to move it around back. So I rolled the guy out here down this little bump, and I think I chipped that when the little drain valve hit. Came this way. Oh no, this is the one that hit right here. Maybe I chipped both of those. Look, it's got a little bit of rust on it. I just noticed that. I don't know. But I was able to push it to right about there when I realized there's no way I'm going to be able to push this thing all the way around to the back, halfway across the back of my house to get to the where the pool pump outlet is. So then one not so great idea led to another. I hooked a cargo strap up to the front on that little hole right there and the one on the other side and around the hitch of my mower, and I pulled it clear around back, going nice and slow. Everything was cool. Where the pool pump sits is up on a little bit of a rise, and that's where I ran into trouble. When I got it up on that rise, that little end foot piece there hit something, and I couldn't get it to, I mean, it's only like, what, less than an inch off the ground. So when the wheels were sinking, I guess I hit a root or I don't know what, sod. I couldn't pull it anymore. The wheels of the mower would just spin. So I stopped, and I got the little woman to give me a hand. She was driving the mower, and I was back there manhandling the compressor. I mean, I only had to move a couple more feet in order for the wire to reach the outlet that I put in out there. And wouldn't go, so we were trying to reposition, and this thing fell over backwards and then fell on its side and completely destroyed that thing. So then I proved without a doubt that it was a bad idea what I was doing, and we gave up. I flipped this thing over. It's got to weigh 500 pounds, man. It really is so heavy. I almost couldn't tip it back up straight again. So on the way back to the garage, I let the little woman drive the mower, and right around where the mango tree, something caught the front edge of that thing, and Barbara didn't notice it, and I couldn't react quick enough. And since the mower was pulling on the front edges, which is up high, and it got held there, it rolled the thing over and it fell forward. And I thought for sure it was going to mess up some of my plumbing here, but luckily it tipped a little bit to the side as it was rolling over. And yeah, this was like complete pandemonium here, really. So after getting it back into place, recovering all the broken pieces of wood, which I think I can glue all that back together, I called it a night because I was kind of pissed. And the next day I cleaned the dirt out of these things and made sure everything was okay, plugged it in, and it runs fine. It didn't hurt anything, thank goodness. Then I realized that I could just roll this thing through the house and not even go through the grass. So a while back I had to take this floor sill out, I guess you call it, in order to get a refrigerator in the house, which was exactly the height of this door minus about 1/8 of an inch, and that caused it to not fit. So I knocked the staples out of it, and I never put them back actually. This thing is still loose. It's removable for instances like this. So I took this out, and then all I needed to do is go up that around here, down this step. Down that step. And stop over there. Go around that, go down that step. I'm making a video. Go around that step. I'll just show you. Down that little step here and stop right around here where my wire was long enough to reach that new 220 volt outlet that I put in there. So I had to figure out how to do all that without destroying it. The thought of that thing rolling over in the house kind of freaking me out, you know? So I thought, well, I'm gonna have to make a ramp out of something. And then it occurred to me, I got some plywood. I could use a piece of plywood to make a ramp. Actually, I got that piece of 3/4 inch plywood that I've had for years. I don't know what to do with it. Probably work on the bus. And then just by chance, I happened to look this way. And my buddy Vaughn Usher a while back gave me this piece of, looks like 1/2 inch thick aluminum. It's one piece, so it's like, there's my ramp. So it worked like a champ. I rolled the compressor around there, didn't even need any help doing it. It was actually really easy. And plugged the thing in, turned it on, and I took my paint gun, sitting right there, and a hose, and I plugged it in there, and I just held it with the pressure set around, it was right around 60, 70 pounds, and just held it, and the compressor ran down, it kicked on, and it ran, and then it kicked off, and it ran down. I let it restart like 3 or 4 times, and it worked perfectly. So I'm confident, about 99% confident, that the electrical circuit's going to be fine out there. So I definitely can paint it in the backyard. I just got to get a length of hose long enough to reach where I want to paint it. So that's what's going on with that. And yeah. And we're in the shop, and we're recovering from our faux pas of rolling over our air compressor and crushing the belt guard. Yeah, I guess it would have been nice if I had a belt guard made out of steel. And it's unplugged, by the way, in case you're wondering about the table saw wire laying on the belt. For what I wanted to do, wood was good enough, and been working fine for years till I wrecked it. So I'm going to cut myself a new piece of plywood because I don't feel like working so hard to put all those pieces back together. I've already taken this and I've run it through the table saw to clean all these edges off, and part of it wasn't broke off of the plywood yet, so I just went ahead and ran it through the table saw. So these are about, I don't know, 1/16 of an inch narrower than they were before, which means nothing. So what we're going to do is we're going to super glue this together. That's how I built it the first time. These are still glued. Okay. That's a gap filled with super glue right there. So the method here, also I sanded these down on the belt sander to get through the glue as much as I could. It's not going to be as strong as it was the first time because the super glue is not going to really be able to soak into this as good as it did the first time. But so we got wax paper down on the table saw, so I won't glue this thing down to the table. And we're going to use our super glue, which I hope I've got enough for this job. How much is in here? I can't tell. Not that much. Oh, sorry, yeah. So I'm going to set this down on its side so it'll settle.
Oh, I've got more glue right here, so yeah, I know I got enough. Oh, looks like I got some there too. And I got my zip kicker.
So what we're going to be doing is we're going to put a liberal amount of glue on one side. We're going to spray the other side with the accelerator spray and hold it together for a few seconds until it bonds. And we're going to do that one piece at a time until it starts coming together. Yeah, so I forgot to mention, before I apply the first glue, I'm going to practice holding this together as if I'm gluing it in different positions until I'm satisfied on how I'm actually going to go about it. Because once it's glued, man, you know? I mean, you have to break it, take it apart. I started thinking that maybe I would do it this way and let the table saw make sure I'm straight in this orientation. Now I'm going back to holding it this way because I think I can do good enough that way. Let's give it a try, see how it goes. Okay, 1, 2, 3. This one came out a little crooked, but I'm at the mercy of uneven edges. Since it's not a cut, it's been sanded, so you know, whatever. Also, I did this one laying flat like I mentioned a moment ago, and it was not as successful as holding it vertical like in this position. So these are glued. You can see where it's glued to the wax paper, but I'll be able to pull that right off of there. So a couple of more joints and we'll be moving right along with this, and doing pretty good on the amount of super glue. So when I'm done bonding them together, I'm going to drip it down in there to add some extra strength wherever there's a gap. Alright, so what I'm doing here is I haven't got but half of it glued up, and I'm wanting to make sure that the accumulation of all the imperfections don't get me completely out of whack by the time I reach the last glue joint, because none of them are perfect. You know, even the first time I built this, you know, I was going by an AutoCAD drawing, which the drawing was perfect on the angles, but this crude table saw didn't do a perfect job of making my angles. So I think at this point I'll glue this joint and this joint and see how it's coming along, because these look like they're pretty true. This one's off a tad. So if I move that in, yeah, that one looks good. I guess they all look pretty good. That's the worst one right now. Okay, yeah, let me make these two joints, and then I'll size it back up again and see that I'm not getting out of whack. Yeah, I knew this was going to be tough because of the way I had to sand all these, and I've ruined the angles. So I'm a little bit off before I glue this last section back on here. You know, maybe I could have gone about this in a little bit different way, but it looks like I can just trim these a little bit and it'll fall into place. I've got the original piece of plywood here that was on there. I guess I could have done all the work on top of the plywood to help keep me straight. But yeah, it's not like it was perfect when I put it together the first time. So I mean, this looks like I'm right on the money. Okay, so oh, that's where the failing is, up there. It's getting short. I guess yeah, this angle here maybe needs to be stretched. Let's try something else here. Let's try, hold on. Okay, I figured out what happened. All these angles are different, and I mixed up this piece and this piece. And that's why I guess that one didn't fit well, because that's not the matching angles. And how I figured this out is, this is the outside, and these two holes were on the top. Right now this is positioned at the bottom. Okay, let's break this off here and here and here and start over with that. Hopefully that won't be so hard to break apart. Alright, so thought I'd take a minute and share with you my belt sander. I've had this for more than 20 years. Bosch 3270. Ryobi makes the same looking belt sander now. This is a 3x21, which is the width of the blade belt times the length of the blade belt. Jesus. And what's great about this belt sander, and the reason why I bought it, is it has a flat top. And it looks like it's even made with these two little pads here. It's made to be set on its top. I just put it up against my fence and lock my fence so it won't try to scoot away on me. I lock the trigger, and I can sand parts all day with this thing, and it does a great job. Also, the belt is a little bit out of track right now, but another thing I do with this is I clamp this down with a piece of plywood here. I have the same piece of plywood, it's stashed up there somewhere, that's got a cut in it where the belt has cut its way through down in the shape, this oval shape. Then I can clamp this thing down on my table saw with that board, and it gives me a 90-degree area to work with for sanding things. It's been a great belt sander. This was not the variable speed model when I bought it. After honing it for a few years, I just went and bought the variable speed switch and stuck it right in there. It's an exact replacement. So there you go. That's how I was doing that. I was just holding these by hand like this while it's running. Alright, so that's that. So now that I got these things ciphered out, I knew that this was the centerpiece, and I thought that these were both the same. That's where I made my mistake. They're not both the same. So I gotta, oopsie, gotta use my pattern and make sure I get them in the right place, because these angles don't match these two angles. We'll get it right the second time. Okay, I got it all together. Most of the joints came out solid, and some of them are a little bit out of whack, and I just filled them with glue. That's actually one that didn't break. That's one of the original joints. So here's one. This is the one with the most fill with super glue. I'm gonna hit that with the sander a little bit more. Okay, so the pieces that I had to break apart right here took quite a bit of effort, man. I had to hit it really hard. But we're in good enough shape now where we can glue this to a new piece of plywood and then cut the circle out, paint it up, and put it back on the air compressor. So if you ever wondered what it looks like inside this bottle, quote unquote bottle, it's not a bottle. It's a mechanism that squeezes the tube. Is that a rip or what? You think you're getting something when all you're getting is a little tube. It even has labeling on the inside tube that generally a consumer should never even see. So evidently they sell them like that. But for us guys in Home Depot, this is what you get. So, hey, nothing but net. So I'm gonna, geez, you know, I think I got enough glue. I mean, I could use wood glue, but then I have to wait for tomorrow before I finish this thing. I can use a super glue and it'll bond instantly. If I don't have enough glue, it's going to mean a lot of extra work because I have to get all that glue off in order to get a good bond with anything else. But yeah, guess I could put it in their fridge. This one here is hardened up. I did not keep it in the fridge. It's not hard, it's just like gelatin in there. Took the cap off and looked in there. It didn't seem like it was worth messing with it, but maybe now I could dip it out of there with a tool or something. I know. It's too thick. I won't be able to work with it. So, by the way, man, when you're working with super glue, if you're quick, you can smear it with your finger. That's what I was doing to fill in these cracks. As long as you keep your finger moving, it won't bond. And yeah, you build up a really thick layer on your finger. I got a little on my thumb too. But it's like no big deal, man. After I'm done working, it just peels off. And yeah, I guess it takes off the first layer of skin, but it doesn't, I don't even feel it, man. Got plenty of skin. And for the last little bit that doesn't peel off, I use sandpaper, right? Or a fingernail file, takes it right off. So yeah, I don't think I want to try that. I'm gonna. I mean, geez, we glued this whole thing together, and I used about that much of the glue to glue all these joints. So here's what I'm going to try to do. Firstly, I put this wood here it's got a little bit of a warp to it. It's trying to stick up on the ends, so that helps it to sit. I can put a clamp over here and a clamp, or a weight for that matter, on this end. Yeah, I think I'll get a couple of clamps out because it's easy enough to clamp to these edges. And now I'm going to turn this over, run a line of the glue all the way around it, and then flip it back and set it there and clamp it. And hopefully I got enough glue between what's in here and what's in that little bottle. And yeah, wish me luck. Well, it's on there. Most of it had plenty of glue, but it got kind of thin down here at this end. I pretty much ran out, and then I used my finger. I sacrificed another finger for glue and started smearing it around. And you got to work fast, So it's a little dry on this side. I went back to the refrigerator and I found some of the extra thin. This stuff is like water thin, if you can see that. And it's designed to glue stuff by just putting, oh, the tip is clogged. You just drip it in the hole, the crack, and it soaks in there like nobody's business. So I'm going to unclog this cap and then I'll show you it work. Okay, here we go. You know what? That stuff is getting old. It's not as thin as it normally is. So let me give it a little smear with the finger. That's just to get it up in the corner there. Help to get it underneath. Normally, when it's fresh, it's thinner than that. This is almost as thick as the medium. Yes, I know, I'm getting it all over my finger. That's going to make for a good bond. And that's all I really care about. Sacrificing the finger for the better good. Okay, let me put a little bit more since I got more. Okay, so that is definitely glued on the inside. How much do I got left? Just a little. So I know it's got squeeze out there, glued well. Give a little extra. Oopsie, sorry. So what we're going to do with this in a minute, as soon as this is cured, wow, it got really close there. We're going to hit this with the router and trim it off. That's about it. Put a big old goober of it here. Sorry. It's hard to hold the phone in the spot that I'm looking without looking in the phone. And it's a little hard to work with what I'm doing here and not look at what I'm doing. Okay, good enough. So I've used all my glue. Let me get my accelerator spray, which normally you would never have to do with this thin glue. It's so thin, it instantly just gets up in there. It soaks in so fast, it'll be cured, depending on what you're working on, it'll be cured before it's even bonded. Alright, so that's glued, man. It's all cured already. It's not wet anymore. See? That's this stuff. That glue is hard. Now I'm getting a little cocky here on how quick that glue dries. But glued, man. That is really super strong too. Is there any more in there? Yeah, there's a little bit more. Just let that drip. And it's getting off path a little bit.
Okay. Okay. That is a job well done. I know it doesn't look like much in the camera lens here, but let me tell you, that is super, super, super duper strong right there. And now that we've glued, I'm just checking if I could see a fillet bead all the way down there. Now that we've got this plywood glued to this, even though these joints may be a little inferior, this plywood really makes it strong. So for all you guys that are model builders and use this super glue, you know how powerful it is. It's a great tool. I've built furniture with it. I built entire wall units out of it. My house 20 years ago, and it's still together. Never had a failure. Okay, so now we're going to give that a few more minutes for the glue to really cure, and we're going to come back. Yeah, that drip is dry right there. Cured, I guess I should say. We're going to come back now with the router, go around the perimeter, give it a final sand. But I guess we'll wait on the final sand. Still got to cut the hole in it. Guess I could do that now. I'm going to use this as a template. The placement of that hole is not all that critical, so we're going to get this close to. I think I'll go ahead and trim the outside so I can line this up a little bit better. Okay. All right, I ran the router with a ball bearing bit around the perimeter of it. Here she is. And I set the depth just enough for the thickness of the plywood and then a hair. It's just mostly for safety. And then I came back with the sander, and I got myself a good glue joint all the way around. So next we're gonna put this guy down. Now that we can see the edges better, we're gonna size up where the hole goes, like that. And it's interesting that you can see a little bit different sizes. Oh, I know what it is. Shape is odd. This would be how the shape goes. But nonetheless, we're a tad smaller. Maybe not so much. Just a little bit smaller. And I guess that's reflective of how I had to sand all these edges to get the glue out before I put it together. So now I can mark that circle and cut that hole and put some paint on this puppy, and we'll put it back together. Done. I used Rust-Oleum hammered paint, they call it. Gives it that textured finish because that's what I had, and it's kind of neat looking, I guess. So yeah, man, I'll have this thing installed tonight. Yeah. So it's supposed to look like that. Pimply looking.